Hey guys, what's going on? It's the Block Bull right about now, bringing you the latest episode to the channel. Now today we're going to look at the Bitcoin chart because Bitcoin is currently going down in value. So there's a lot of fear in the markets at the moment, but I want to bring your attention to this market cap of where Bitcoin is. Well, if Bitcoin was to take the market cap of gold, we would be looking at an $859,000 Bitcoin in terms of gold. Now, gold is literally valued over 11, 12 trillion, around that sort of ball figure. But you can see the progression bar with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is only worth 6.32% of gold. So this is how early we are in the markets now. Now, if I was to take you over to the Bitcoin chart here, this is the Bitcoin chart on the weekly, and this is a macro chart dating all the way back from inception here, when actual Bitcoin got going here around August 2011. So we're going back over 13 years now. So this is where we were. We started off under $2 here. $2. Imagine getting into Bitcoin at $2 and where you would be now with that sort of bag. Do the maths on that. But anyway, we had a massive rally out of there ever since inception. You know, ever since it was created, 2011, we run up for literally 2 years there, and we reach around that sort of $1,000 ball figure, all the way from $2. So that's a 500x if you held over like that sort of 2 year period. Now you can see how this sort of macro sort of structure plays out over the years. Now you can see the bull cycles as well. We've marked that 2017-18 high here, where we reached approximately $19,000-$20,000. Obviously, then we rolled over into the bear market, and then, you know, we get a little bit of a pop, and then we roll over, and then we go into that accumulation consolidation range before we have the Bitcoin halve, and then we run up to do that double top. Now, each time we have literally been hitting this sort of top blue trend line. You can see here, 2017-18, we exceeded it. We actually retested around this sort of section as well before we rolled over. And again here, you can see this sort of retest around this area. We breached the blue line. We were trading alongside. We was grinding above the trend line. And then again, we fell through. Before we actually capitulate into the bear market, though, we like to retest the macro structure as always. So this is where we get the final test. And that is a double top. That was the signal to get out of the sort of Bitcoin at the time, back in October of 21. Obviously, since then, we've been grinding in this sort of... we've been suppressed by this white trend line, ultimately. So we've been trading below the white and obviously bouncing around, you know, this lower trend line. So then we've obviously grinded up here. We've looked to breach the white resistance line, which we've done successfully. And then we've run into some more sort of structure here. So this is us now on the micro. Obviously, micro meets macro at the moment. So these white trend lines, what I would call micro, even though we're on the larger scale, you know, because we're looking at a sort of 10, 11, 12 year sort of period here. You know, we're dating back all the way to 2011, mind you. So there's a lot of fear in the markets, as you can see. Fear and greed index is currently at 26. So still in amber, but I do expect us to get into this sort of red section before we really get going into Q4, and obviously with the interest rate cuts as well on the 18th of September as well. So that's obviously going to be a game changer. Now, if I take us back here on this macro structure here, you can see how this blue trend line is actually capturing us as and acting as support. So for me, I understand why the market is fearful. However, we are holding strongly. So if we are to breach down here and come below this sort of $52,000, $51,000 mark, then obviously that to me would be a fearful, and, you know, it'd be very difficult to hold Bitcoin then, because we've never been in a situation where Bitcoin has actually brought below this sort of blue trend line. Well, at least closed on the weekly. If that happens, who knows what will happen to the markets, because obviously we're living in unprecedented times. What's going on a geopolitical level around the world? You know, you've got everything going on in the Middle East, China, Russia. Obviously, you've got NATO as well encroaching Russian borders. Obviously, you've got Israel, Palestine. It's all going on in the world. So there's going to be a fundamental shift with the way we actually conduct transactions. Now, you can already see how crypto is becoming mainstream, especially with MasterCard now in Europe accepting crypto payments. So you can use Bitcoin and you can use other cryptos as well. But so far, so good. But ultimately, I do expect Bitcoin to grind out and maybe pinball between this sort of lower blue trend line, even up to this higher white trend line here coming in. which marks the top of these closes here. So again, this is kind of stipulating up until the end of the year. Now let's just bring this back a tad, just so it marries up. I want it to be literally perfect. So again, we're going into December, and this is like just after the elections, and this is exactly what's happening with the XRP chart and a lot of other alts as well. We're literally looking into a consolidation. So whether or not we actually consolidate, it's like a pressure cooker. We're going to consolidate now for maybe, the final quarter. If we get a breakout sooner, that's a bonus. But in terms of expectations, to keep our psychology intact, our mentality, we need to have some broader expectations. So we're not hoping for a burst just yet. However, it is looking very positive, and it's a time to be accumulating now before we actually get that lift off. Now, on this earlier in the video, I marked out how one Bitcoin, if we was to capture the market cap of gold, which in my view is possible. I don't know if that's going to happen in this cycle. It's highly unlikely that it will happen in this cycle, because I believe a lot of altcoins will capture a lot of the sort of new capital coming into the markets. But I certainly believe we can sort of challenge up at this top trend line. You can see I marked it out here. It's very, very sensitive. So that's my best sort of... You can see how it flicks around. If you're looking at this number here, it actually flicks around. Obviously, I've tried to mark out 860 as accurate as possible. Okay, or 859. However, I do expect Bitcoin to start making some grounds here. Say, for example, November, December, we could get going. We could maybe get up to this sort of 860 sort of ball figure, maybe 150, 860. And I would like to sort of come back down and even have that final bounce. Okay, so this is what I'll be looking to do. And then ultimately, I want to be topping out around September, October. I do believe altcoins will top out around September, October. Whether or not Bitcoin is correlated with the altcoins at that point, who's to know? Because so far, Bitcoin has obviously exceeded its previous all-time high that was set in the previous bull market. And then obviously, we've had some retracement since. But I do expect Bitcoin to do something like this, and then ultimately we roll over into a bear market. So something similar to this. I wouldn't, something similar to this. But what I would be looking to do is, you can see where the sort of resistance line is here on this double top here, back in 2021, double top. Now you can see how we're actually trading. This is where I'm saying Bitcoin exceeded these highs. Yeah, so we've literally been flirting with all-time highs. And then obviously macro structure is supporting us now. So we're literally going into this sort of convergence in December, as I've just mentioned. Get that first impulse, and we're looking to do an Elliott wave. So usually you get like a 5 count. Obviously this is just a rough illustration. So if I was to delete that, let's get the Elliott wave up. So something like this, maybe a 1, 2, 3, 4. I won't be looking at going as high as that, but where does that take us to? September. So if we take that all the way up to September, we're looking at $500,000 per Bitcoin, in my opinion. Now, that is a possibility, in my opinion. And then obviously we'll do an ABC correction as well. So we'll do like an A, B, C, somewhere around there. So then we'll be still worth $250,000, even at the bottom of the bear market. So that is a possibility, guys. Obviously there could be other news coming out that, maybe after the C wave we could actually capitulate, because for me that would be a strong floor around here. So there could be, at some point in 2026, there could be some massive news where Bitcoin ultimately breaks this blue trend line, this blue support line, as support. Now imagine how fearful the market will be if we actually capitulate that far. Just imagine if that happens, guys. Anyway, I'm going to leave it with you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your time as always. I've been the Block Bull, over and out.